What methods have I used over the years, or have I found best to learn Japanese? Now, before we start this, I just want to say, if you're learning Japanese and you think that this is a daunting task, it absolutely is. It's going to take a long time to learn Japanese, and I want you to know that I'm not perfectly fluent. In fact, I'm far from it. I'm still learning to this day. But with that being said, you can do it. If you put your mind to anything, if you believe in yourself, then you can do it. You can learn Japanese. It really just comes down to how much time, how much effort you put in, and what methods you use to actually learn Japanese, because I think the methods are incredibly important. Also, before I tell you all my tips and tricks and all the things I've learned along the way, the best way to learn Japanese, I want you to know I've been doing this since the year 2017, and currently it is 2025. At the end of 2025, it's the 10th month. So I want you to know that. I've had a lot of experience. So first things first, if you're learning Japanese, I highly recommend, and this will not take a lot of time, but learn your hiragana and katakana. So if you don't know, and I'm sure a lot of you already know, but there's 3 alphabets in Japanese. There's hiragana, which is like the native Japanese alphabet. There's katakana, which is a duplicate version of hiragana, and if you learn that, it's really just the same thing with different symbols. And then there's a really difficult one called kanji, and those are like the Chinese characters. That is very hard. But fun fact, you actually don't need to learn kanji. You can totally skip that step for now. Save that for much later. In fact, I would recommend, don't even bother learning kanji right now. You can get by, you can learn the language without that. So to learn hiragana and katakana, what you do is you use flashcards, and it's really easy. Like, just use flashcards for 15 minutes a day for a week. You'll literally know hiragana and katakana. And then you can mix that with something called mnemonics, which is basically just a picture that looks like the hiragana, right? It's a really easy way of memorizing it. I'll throw something on screen here so you can kind of understand what I'm saying. Once you know your hiragana and katakana, you're set to go. It's easy, okay? So the first thing I'm going to talk about is Pokemon. Yes, Pokemon. So as you can see here on screen, there is a Pokemon Pearl game that's playing on my Nintendo DS, and this is the Japanese version, and you can pick these up really cheap. I mean, I know I'm here in Japan. I got this game for I think it was like $7 literally. So you pick one of these up, and these games are designed for children, meaning that the language level is aimed at like a 3-year-old, meaning everything you learn inside of these games is very simple. And the best part about this, and I never hear anybody talk about this, but the best part about this is the fact that there's no kanji, there's no Chinese characters. I have yet to see any, and I play this game all the time. But the best way to learn using a Pokemon game is to try your best to read the hiragana katakana. That's it. Just try your best to read it. Take those words, Google Translate them, and then you can start to understand exactly what's going on. So when you go to the Pokemon Center and the Pokemon girl says, "Arigatou gozaimasu, Pokemon Center," it's pretty easy to understand what's happening there. She's saying, "Thank you for coming in. This is the Pokemon Center," right? Little caveat though, if you're starting off on your Japanese learning journey, I wouldn't pick up the Pokemon game just yet. Maybe save that for a little bit later when you have a couple basic words down, right? The next thing we have on the list is watching anime. If I swing my screen over like that, just bam, we can see we have an anime on the screen. Now this anime specifically is Ampan Man. And Ampan Man is literally made for little kids, which is perfect if you're trying to learn Japanese. You don't need to watch Death Note to learn Japanese. You need to watch Ampan Man because this is made for 4-year-olds. This is perfect for your Japanese language learning. Now, again, I don't recommend learning Japanese through anime at the start, but once you have some of those basic words down, once you know kind of like the tenses of how verbs work and everything, then this starts to become very early on a very good way to learn Japanese. And I would suggest watching it without the subtitles. However, if you want to use the subtitles, do it whichever way that you feel like you're learning over time, I would suggest doing it that way. But Anpan Man is the number one anime, and yes, I've looked at like Doraemon and other like little kids animes to try and learn Japanese, but I think Anpan Man's the best because the way they speak is very simple. The voices, like Doraemon, some of the voices are really hard to understand because they're like, and it's kind of hard to understand. You get what I'm saying? Okay, next up we have Duolingo. Oh my god, my chair almost fell over. Duolingo. We have Duolingo. This is like the gateway drug for anybody that's learning a language. Duolingo is actually a good tool. Now, I want to start by saying Duolingo is not the be-all, end-all, because Duolingo will not be the only thing. What the fuck am I saying? Duolingo is good, but only using Duolingo and nothing else is a mistake, because you can't just learn Japanese from only Duolingo. It is a good tool and I use it a lot. I would highly recommend using it. However, I think that you really should truly mix it with other tools. Other tools being Rosetta Stone. Rosetta Stone was my gateway into Japanese, and I think that it's a very powerful tool. What Rosetta Stone is they'll basically say a word in Japanese and show you a picture, then you have to select the correct picture. And it also has like speaking exercises and things like that. I think Rosetta Stone is a very, very powerful tool when learning Japanese. Since we're talking about apps right now, let's talk about Pimsleur. So Pimsleur is something that's been around, I think, for like 50 years, and they developed this technique that is very effective, and it's just 30 minutes a day. You practice Japanese and you listen to this. It's going to take you longer than 30 minutes because you're going to pause the lesson all the time. So 45 minutes to an hour. But you listen to this guy talking and you repeat things that he says. And then he explains them in English, then you repeat what he says. And this is a really good way to like build sentences and vocabulary that really stick, because you have to literally think about it. It's not like Duolingo where it's on a screen, you just tap a button and subconsciously you're kind of learning like that. This is something that's very active, and it feels very draining while you're doing it, but whew, does it work? It is incredibly effective. However, he does say that you should only use it 30 minutes a day, so one lesson a day. It's about $20 a month if you sign up through the mobile app. I think there might be another way to do it, but Pimsleur is one of the greatest ways to learn Japanese, but it's not one of those ways that you can, like if you want to sit down and study for 5 hours, you can't do it. So it'd be something that you threw into your study regimen. Next up, we have the Genki book. Now this, again, just like Pokemon, is something that you need to know hiragana and katakana for. People talk about this all the time. This is an excellent book. What's funny about this book is I bought this book and I didn't use it for a very long time. In fact, it took me until fairly recently to start using it. And at this point, I realized that I know a lot more about Japanese than I've been putting on, because as I go through this book, I've realized it's very rare. It's a very rare occasion that I come across a word that I don't already know. So I'm kind of just skimming through this book, knocking it out really quickly. But I do see the power in this and how incredible that this can be. Now, kind of weird, it starts off with Ramoji, which is what I used for a long time before realizing hiragana and katakana are incredibly powerful. But then eventually the book, fairly quickly within the first few chapters, kind of goes into just hiragana katakana only mode. Either way, highly recommend this because I can see the power in this, even though I started using it way too late. Next thing is true immersion. So me, I'm here in Japanese. I'm here in Japan, and I live with two Japanese girls, and they talk to me in Japanese all the time. I go to the convenience store, I talk to people at the counter, and I learn Japanese like that. Like when you have to literally use Japanese to survive, it is a very powerful tool. For you, however, you probably don't have that luxury of, hey, I'm in Japan. If I want to eat food right now, I need to know how to say kore wa kudasai or something, right? The accent probably sounded really terrible. Oh, by the way, if you're speaking in English and then you try to switch to Japanese, it'll probably come off as like a very English speaking type sentence, like a very English accented sentence. Fun fact. Onigiri hitotsu onegai shimasu. However, for you, you probably don't have that luxury. So what I would suggest to actually speak to Japanese people is I have a free method that you can use, but I also have a paid method. Now, the free method is you could just go find some kind of Discord server where the people in the Discord server are literally Japanese. And if you hop around enough, maybe you'll find somebody that speaks a little bit of English. Maybe you can make some online Discord friends, and in voice chat you can just play video games with them, have fun. Not something that I've done because I've never really looked into it, even though I think it's a really good idea, but I've heard people of sentences don't come out of my mouth today. I've heard people doing that before. That's not correct English. The other way that you could do it is you can sign up on one of these websites where you can literally hire a tutor, and it's usually fairly cheap. And if you want to do that like 5, 6, 7 times a week, or just as many times as you want for 30 minutes to an hour, then your Japanese is going to significantly improve, because just being able to actually speak to somebody in Japanese is true immersion. Like, it's going to help so much, you have no idea. Of course, you always have the other option of if you have real life friends who are Japanese, then try speaking Japanese with them. That's always a thing too. I wrote down another one. Watching live streams of Japanese people. Now this is it's less immersion, but if you're watching Japanese people on live stream, let's say you're on TikTok, right? The little tiki-takis, and you come across the live stream of like a couple Japanese girls sitting there and they're just talking to chat, blah, blah, blah. You can just sit in there and like listen to them. Listen to what they say, because that's going to be super natural Japanese, super casual Japanese, where they're just like, kawaii, arigatou gozaimasu. And you can hear these words and you can start to learn these. Sugoi. You can start learning these words and hear how they say, how it sounds when they say it out loud, right? That is one method. And it doesn't have to be Japanese girls. It could be literally anybody speaking Japanese, right? The next one is manga. One second. Okay, so I got a couple manga here, and I gotta be careful not to knock that chair over. I got Baki, I got One Punch Man, and I got a Dragon Ball Super manga. So if you go on eBay or whatever, and you pick up manga, and by the way, if you want the Pokemon game, you're gonna have to go on eBay. It's probably gonna, I don't know the price on it, but you'll have to go on eBay to pick that up. If you pick up manga, off eBay, then you can sit down, and manga is almost always written with, I don't know if you can see this. Let me move the mic over here so it's not. Manga is always written in hiragana and katakana, and there'll be kanji, like the Chinese character, but right next to the, I can't see this on the screen, right next to the kanji, there will be very little tiny hiragana and katakana. So you can read it that way. You don't need to know kanji. However, I would suggest, if you're new to Japanese, or like you're at a beginner level, you're not very confident, that you buy a beginner level manga. What I mean by this is, if you're going to buy a manga, go buy Anpan Man. Anpan Man is like literally the best, because the first things you're going to learn in Japanese, especially if you're in Japan, is food, and all the characters are named after food. So it's really easy when you see Kare Man, which is curry man. When you see that name, to know exactly what that is, if you get what I'm saying. There's cream pan, which is cream bread. You pick up Anpan Man. Just pick up Anpan Man or Doraemon, whatever. When it comes to manga, like, you can't hear the voices, right? You're just reading. This is all going to be written in very simple Japanese, so it's going to be easy for you to understand. I would not suggest, however, picking up any of the manga that I got unless you're at a more advanced level. And this is because, like, a lot of the things that they say in these manga aren't true to how people actually speak, where Anpan Man is more realistic of how like little kids would speak. And I think when you're learning a language, just like you learned your first language, you learned it when you were a little kid, right? So you should use methods that little kids would use to learn a language, because it's going to be simpler sentences, like I don't know, like curry ga daisuki or something, like I love curry, you know what I'm saying? So okay, I'm just rambling on. So the next thing I wrote down here, typed out here, is learn the grammar, learn the rules of Japanese, the grammatical rules. This will help you tremendously. So for instance, Let's talk about food. Eat. The word for eat is taberu. So taberu is to eat. But let's say I want to eat. You would say tabetai. You change the end of it to tai. And tai is like a desire to do something, right? So you learn those rules, kind of like eat, ate, and it applies to all the verbs. Like almost all the verbs follow these same rules. You just gotta you gotta go online. You gotta go on YouTube, watch some videos, and learn how these verbs change. And once you know it, like you'll know one word, but then you can change the tense of that word, and you'll have like 6 different meanings of how you can use that word. Or when you're listening to Japanese, if you hear tabemasu and then you hear tabetai, you'll know exactly what that means. You'll say, oh, that's a desire. I heard the word tai at the end of the sentence, which the verbs are at the end of the sentence, so that's saying desire. He wants something, right? The rules of grammar are important, and I think you should learn them as quickly as possible. Like as soon as you're feeling that itch of like, okay, I've been doing the Duolingos for a while, I'm feeling pretty good. I think that's the point where you should be like, okay, let's look deeper into this. Let's watch some YouTube videos about the rules. Try to find some fun ones that keep you entertained. Don't maybe not watch the super boring video. There's a lot of videos out there, but watch whatever one that keeps you entertained enough to where you can keep learning the language. The next thing is particles. So particles, same thing here. Particles are like wa, oh. I don't know why I can't think. When I'm speaking English, I can't think in Japanese. But the particles are like wa means is. There's ka, which at the end of a sentence makes it a sentence, a question, right? But learn the particles. Same thing for the grammar. Look that up. They're very simple. They're gonna feel complicated at first, but they're actually very simple. Like they're very simple. That's all I wrote down. I feel like I have more to say, but that's all I wrote down. So for today, that's it. If you like this video, then be sure to subscribe to the channel because I make videos. Bye-bye.